Now it's time for No Pucks Given with Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Penguin Scoop's locker room buzz and straight-up analysis. No fluff, all hockey. Now, here's Dan.
And here we go. It is a No Pucks Given. I think it's like episode 36. I am Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms, the Odyssey Podcast Network. And I believe they'll be putting this on YouTube and Facebook and, a subway hitching post near you. So here's what's on tap for this episode. We're going to talk about the Penguins kids. Now, there's another rookie in the lineup. I don't know if you caught the news on Sunday. Ricard Raquel had surgery on his left hand Sunday morning, out 6 to 8 weeks. That joins Caleb Jones, who on Saturday was announced to have a lower body injury, also out about 8 weeks. So the Penguins have only made one recall to this point, and that was Ville Koivunen on Sunday. Koivunen started the season high hopes after 7 points in 8 games last year. There was a lot of hope around what he could do beside Sidney Crosby or Evgeny Malkin. And let's be honest, he kind of face planted in the first couple of games. So we're going to talk about Koivunen. I won't give away his... Koivunen will never be confused with being verbose or wordy. And I thought he had just the perfect quote when asked what coaches said to him before the Penguins sent him down. We'll get to that. We're also going to talk about the Penguins' sustainability. 6-2-1 after 9 games. They're basically a point away from having as many points in this 2025 October as they've had in the last 2 Octobers combined. Let that sink in just a little bit. We're going to go over the players kind of playing over their heads and way over expectations, who are all but assured to regress to the mean. I apologize for using a Pirates term. And the things within the Penguins game and their lineup that can continue and can bring them success. So we'll talk about that. Plus, I've got a couple of reader questions as well. That's where we start this here No Pucks Given. And if I look a little worse for wear, for those of you on the video side, well, it's only October, and this schedule is already starting to wear me out a little bit. We've got an 8-day road trip with only 3 games. I guess there's 4. I almost don't count Philadelphia. Cross our fingers that Amtrak gets me to Philadelphia on time, because I couldn't drive there on Tuesday, and there's never any good flights to Philadelphia. So I'm taking the train because I can't drive to Philly, because we're flying from Philly to Minneapolis, and then Minneapolis up to Winnipeg to Toronto. And if we're in Toronto, if there's a Game 7 in the World Series, we'll be there, we'll be arriving that night. Although I think I'm staying in Winnipeg until the next morning. So if there is a Game 7, I'll be watching it from Winnipeg. But the hotel prices, unbelievable. The little places I stay, even a little jazz club with basically a single bed and a bathroom for you, was like $500. People were just like, yeah, if there's a World Series and they win it, I'm staying, and I'm staying for the parade. So downtown Toronto is booked. I may or may not be staying at a casino. Just don't tell the NBA. All right, let's get into this No Pucks Given here. And I actually have to move my little bit of a light. Okay. I had to find the clock, because my podcast producer, Scott's like, hey, can you let me know when you talk about certain issues? I'm like, well, no, because this is stream of consciousness. Here is what I wrote down. I made some quick notes. The topics. I write down a couple names, and that is it. Where we go from here is entirely up to my brain, and it hasn't yet informed me of where we're going. I can't tell you the number of times I have, in fact, started a column or even a podcast with a specific conclusion. And I begin laying out the evidence, the facts, the logic. And before I'm halfway done, or about the time I'm getting to the end, I realize my conclusion doesn't match the facts. And I have to like rewrite the second half of the story to update my conclusion to what I've just now laid out in front of me. Sometimes when you say it out loud or put it in print, it just looks different than it sounds in your head. Or, listen, I've got plenty of voices upstairs. I let them argue for control. Let's talk about the Penguins kids now, because they're going to have a handful of rookies in the lineup at any given time. Arthur Silovs counts as a rookie, so when he plays, that's one. Harrison Brunick is 2. Ben Kindel is 3. Ville Koivunen now 4. And Filip Hållander is 5. As of Sunday, don't get married to these lines. Don't get all emotionally attached to Filip Hållander being on Sidney Crosby's line. But that's how they're going to start Monday against the St. Louis Blues. Hollander has been a steady example of kind of how to make it in the NHL. No risks, few rewards, but he hasn't made mistakes. He has contributed to the play moving forward, kind of starting them off, and he's been responsible in the defensive zone. That's compared to the other wingers on the third line, I would say he has been a standout. However, that's kind of like being the smartest man in prison at this point. So Hållander gets the bump, partly out of necessity, but as Coach Dan Muse also said, hey, listen, we kind of wanted to see how it would go. I appreciated that bit of admission more than you know. It's like, yeah, you know what? The guy scored 27 goals in Sweden. Now, Dan Muse didn't say this part. I'm saying it. But he scores 27 goals in Sweden last year. He's got a bit of playmaking ability. We saw it in the preseason when he played with Ben Kindel. Those two had Kindel brought it out of him. So what the heck? They're going to try Hållander on the top line. I don't think it's going to last long. I tend to think that Sidney Crosby might chew him up and spit him out a little bit. But listen, you just never know. So the Penguins are going to have 5 rookies in the lineup at any one point here going forward. And listen, they probably should have 6 by recalling a left-handed defenseman. And Pickering. Sorry. Pickering. We'll see where that goes. I do have by the time you hear this podcast, I will have published a scoop on the Penguins trade calls. They're calling around. What the heck? I'll break the news because you're not going to hear this until Monday morning. So I'm recording this Sunday evening during halftime of the Steelers game. Here's the breaking scoop. The Penguins are calling around other teams looking for bargain left-handed defensemen. I believe one of the names that you can watch would be Erik Gustafsson in Detroit. There are others. The Penguins are really only offering a mid-round, late-round pick. They're not offering a whole lot. So they're not having any luck. Now, that comes from a league source familiar with several conversations the Penguins have had. Okay. So there's that. Oh, I'll note that down for Scott at 8:06. I talked about a trade. Now, back to the rookies. Let's be clear. The Penguins are a better team with the rookies in the lineup. There are going to be wild swings up and down. Maybe not so much of Ben Kindel. Boy, that guy is he's getting better and better. But everybody else is going to have the struggles. They're going to buy their ticket on the struggle bus and they're going to be them. There's nothing they can do about it. Nothing anybody can. This is the trial and error. This is the gaining experience part of their careers. Mark that down for Scott too. Brunick had a couple of wild games. He was adventure driving. in the 2 games before he was scratched for the last 2 games. As we talked about in the post game, though, his mistakes were no worse than, say, Connor Clifton's. And Brunick has a higher upside. Also, he can get out of trouble like nobody. Just turn the feet and go. And that helps the Penguins' breakouts, and that helps the Penguins transition from defense to offense. He needs to be in the lineup more. I understand they're 6-2-1. They're starting to think we need to win games. Unless Brunick plays his way out of a spot, and you're like, okay, this can't continue. And he was starting to head that way in his final 2 games. But listen, he sat a game, and then he sat another game back in the lineup. Ville Koivunen. Here is the quintessential sort of rookie story, right? The explosion last season, 7 assists in 8 games, still looking for his first goal. But boy, he was just incredible last season. When he finally got the call up, he was reading the play. He was holding the puck when it was appropriate, dishing it to, some great passes to Sidney Crosby. That line really had a spark. But then this year, after the preseason, he's playing with Kindel and Hållander, and that looked pretty good. Maybe that should be the line Monday. Maybe it will be before long anyway. He looked lost. He looked lost beside Sidney Crosby. It's like they waved the green flag and everything went to hell in a handbasket. So they send him down. What does he have? Like 10 points in 6 games. Wilkes-Barre Scranton is 7-0. They're unbelievable. They're just destroying opponents down there. He gets the call back. This is kind of the up and the down, the ebb and the flow of a mid-range prospect. Is he as good as he was at the end of last season? Is he as bad as he showed at the beginning of this season? The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. I suspect it's closer to last season. You don't get those hockey smarts, and you don't make those plays on a hot streak. You make those plays because you're good and you can. So that's where I see Koivunen sort of going. Just the energy that they bring to the table. I think that helps the Penguins tremendously. Let's talk about the last couple of games. The Penguins have been badly outshot in the last 2 games. Florida had 81 shot attempts on Thursday to the Penguins' 43. The shots were 37-16. For those of you who, those public school mathers, that's more than double. I kid. I mean, yes, it is double. I'm kidding about the public school stuff. Then they get outshot 40-28, outchanced more than a 2-1 ratio against Columbus, of all teams. Now, Columbus is now 4-4, but they're not Florida. This is where we go into topic number 2 of No Pucks Given. And you know what? Since this is about the halfway point of the podcast, I, your lovely host, am going to take a quick timeout for those of you on the podcast side. If you're watching the video, I put my head down and I take a breath and we keep going. Those of you on the podcast side, the Odyssey Podcast Network, would like to pay a few bills right now. All right, let's keep this thing going here. So sustainability is a big thing, I think, with this Penguins team. It's what Kyle Dubas and his small circle have to be evaluating very carefully and very closely. What can continue and what can't. For example, I think we can all agree Evgeny Malkin is not going to score 120 points this season. I'm just pretty sure he's not. But that's what he was on pace for after 8 games. pretty sure Justin Brazeau is not going to score 50 goals. But after 8 games, that's what he was on pace for. I know, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? Those are big regressions to the mean that are coming. That's been a big part of the Penguins' offense. That line had accounted for 10 goals and 24 assists through the first 7 games of the season. That's a lot. That's a lot. And without that, where's it going to come from? Let's put a pin in that. So we can talk about the players who are going to rise or presumably rise. But there are more regressions coming for the Penguins. Tristan Jarry and Arthur Silovs sporting .920 save percentages. Does anybody really think that's going to last? No, of course not. And that's not an insult to either one. If both of them, or even one of them, settles into a .910, .912 save percentage for the season, I think that would be a victory for either goaltender to be at that rate by the end of the year. Absolute victory, especially in this NHL with the way scoring is right now. A .910, .912, just fine. So those are the things that are going to regress. The power play. They are not going to keep scoring goals at a 33.3% clip. They're not going to convert a third of their power plays this season. So that's coming down. Now you start to realize how much less offense the Penguins are going to have, because Sidney Crosby is still putting up more than a point per game. Believe it or not, even with his early season struggles and kind of getting frustrated and all of that, he's still above a point per game. So there's no more offense coming from Crosby. Rickard Rakell out 6 to 8 weeks. Brian Rust will get it going. Rust still, I thought he actually had, you can see his game percolating against Columbus. And when he breaks through, he will provide some of the offense that the second line won't provide. Presumably so. Listen, there's no guarantee that Brian Rust is going to continue to be a 30 to 35 goal scorer. It was a heck of a season last year. If he scores 22, 23 with all the extra PK minutes and missing Rakell and rookies in the lineup, that's not bad. Not bad. That's not a bad season whatsoever. Okay, what is sustainable with these Penguins to kind of offset all of that? I think it begins and ends with the defense. Erik Karlsson, 5 points in 8 games. That's great. But he is actually, I know, hold on to your hats here, kids, playing defense. That is invaluable. That makes his 5 points in the first 8 games, 6 and 9. It makes those points more valuable. If you score 5 in first 8 games, he had 5 points, but you're giving up more offense than you're contributing. Well, those 5 points are kind of worthless. When you're playing defense, now they have value, and Erik Karlsson is doing that. I think what Ryan Shea is doing, that was a pretty goal he scored on Saturday night. I was talking to him about it. I'm like, man, that was a goal scorer's goal. What were you doing? He's like, he sort of nodded. I can say these things to Ryan Shea. We've got a nice little rapport there, and we can talk hockey. And what Ryan Shea said was one of the best shots of my career. He's like, I got wood to it. Like I got he got everything behind that. He snapped that top shelf. It was a great pass by Anthony Mantha as well. That lane, the seas just sort of parted as Shea jumped in. Now, another side note, I'll be writing a column about this on Monday. Not a column, but a story about this kind of stuff. But Shea didn't necessarily know that lane was going to open up. He just was confident if he did something, he could make something happen. And about the time he started is about the time it opened up, and so it all just fell right into place. I also think Parker Wotherspoon is another sustainable piece. This guy, very much like Shea, put in his time in the AHL. Witherspoon had 5 seasons down there. And I'll give you another little tidbit of a story coming up on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. And I was talking to Shea Sunday, of course, and he's like, that can mess with you. Fortunately, I never let it get to me. It really, for those guys, it's like this obstinate belief that they could and they would. Now, it helps that Witherspoon spent the last several seasons mostly in the NHL, even if it was in press box form in Boston, still in the NHL. Like you're not riding the bus in the AHL, and you're not going from Providence to Springfield and playing 3 games in 3 days and all the stuff those poor AHL players have to go through. He is entirely sustainable. Chris Letang is going to get better. I think we saw that on Saturday. Saturday was his best game. He's going to elevate. All of those things sort of help. If the defense solidifies, gets better on these breakouts, gets better. I don't even know quite how to describe it. I think the term might be just cleaning up the game. It's messy. It's completely messy for the Penguins right now. And as they clean that up, it should be, they're not going to be a 700 winning percentage team. Not happening. Hell no. But if they can be 550, 600, that puts them right there in the wild card race. And as we talked about last week, we talk about what constitutes a successful Penguins season. They are coming to that fork in the road in which a successful season means they get good assets for their veteran players and a good player in the 2026 draft, or they make the playoffs. Anything in the middle is bad news, is failure. In the middle there, in that canyon between the playoffs and getting good assets, becomes a failure. So that's where we're at. And if the Penguins can play some defense, keep competent goaltending. And I got a question about Arthur Silovs, and we're going to wrap up the show with here shortly. Competent goaltending, good defense, Crosby's top line, if Sid stays in that point per game range, and if Malkin can, listen, how cool would it be to see Malkin have one of those vintage Evgeny Malkin seasons, huh? Maybe he has 60, 70 points. Now that, his wingers are indeed finishing these silver platter chances he's serving up. He didn't have that last year. And this is kind of where we're going to get into it a little bit. I'm going to transition here to the third topic, which is reader questions, because perfect segue here. David B says, ask the Tommy Novak question. Is he an asset to the team? Now, we didn't find out about Novak last season. He plays a game and a half with the Penguins, suffers what became a season-ending injury. Philip Tomasino, by all statistical categories and measurements, was underwater. Malkin was delivering scoring chances, and they weren't hitting the back of the net. We've talked about this. I'll repeat it for those of you who may not remember, perhaps didn't hear it the first time. I think I did this, a couple times in the offseason and again a month ago when they were setting the lines, is that if you look at the money puck, they take all like the natural stat trick expected, they take all the info and crunch it down. And Tomasino was 13% underwater. He should have converted 13% more of his chances as just an average player. Now, factoring in you're a top 6 player, you should score at a better rate than just vanilla average. If we take just average finishing rate for Evgeny Malkin wingers, he would have had 60 or 62 points in 68 games last season. That's a pretty good season, isn't it? In fact, he probably would have had more because he starts feeling good. He gets confident, gets up on his toes. He can't gallop like he used to, but he can play strong. And when he gets confident, he's feeling good, those points start coming. And if he had a bit more of that last season, heck, he might have had more than a point per game. So, David, to your question, Tommy Novak. I think we've been over the Philip Tomasino stuff in print, in the post games. I feel like I've answered that, and I don't want to pile on the player. I despise when fans do it. I'm not going to make a crusade of it. I've said what I said. I've written what I've written. Novak is a different matter because we're just getting our first looks at him. I see too much of a soft game with him, and this was the knock coming from Nashville, and I see it. That third line with Novak in the middle, Tomasino on the right, and who was on the left? I guess it was Hållander. They were chasing the game all night long because even when they got the puck down deep, it was taken from them, knocked off the puck, stolen, losing puck battles, and now you're chasing the game 200 feet because Columbus has a great transition game. Columbus really activates the defense well, as between Provorov and Denton Mateychuk, and these guys. Mateychuk, is he still a rookie or is this technically? I don't know if he played more. Yeah, I guess I don't know if he played more than 25 games last year, but this was the guy I saw at the Memorial Cup when I went to scout Braden Yeager, and it was like, wow, this guy is good. So there is that component that I just don't like Novak's game. Can he improve it, though? That's the question. That's why he was acquired, for him to have time and effort and energy to improve his game. You can see he's got hands, and you can see he's got the hockey smarts. Now he has to actually add that component of his game where he's able to play with the puck in tight space, especially in the Metro Division. It's not what it was 5 or 7 years ago when the old Lions were just knocking the tar out of each other. But it's still a tight hockey division. Islanders, the Penguins, the Rangers, the Capitals. Certainly Carolina. You don't get an inch of space against Carolina. So you have to be good in tight spaces in the Metro Division. Novak's going to have to add that. He's going to get the time to do it. And I guess that's all I'm going to say about him for now. I haven't liked his game. I'll be clear about that. But can he turn it around? He'll get the chance. Melissa asks, Arthur Silovs was not very good on Saturday. Did he cost them the game? Interesting. The first Silovs blame question. Dun, 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 dun. I need like big organ. Maybe Scott will insert some organ music for us. Like dun, dun, dun. Anyway, I'll pause here and see if Scott does it. You'll find out before I do. He's probably listening to this Monday morning going, what? Dan is an idiot. Okay. No, Silovs didn't cost the Penguins the game. They were unabashedly bad for most of the 60 minutes. They had a good 5-minute start. They get the goal in the first shift, and they had a great final 7 minutes, which for them was enough to get a point. They left Silovs out to dry. Might as well put clothespins on his jersey, run it down the clothesline because he was hung out to dry. You can't get outshot 40-28. You can't get outchanced. I think it was 12-5, high danger chances, 11-5, You can't have only 5 high danger chances at 5-on-5 and expect to win the game unless you get a bunch of power plays in the first period and get a 3-0 lead. That's the only way it happens. And you just sit in a shell, the other team quits and goes home. Silovs, clearly, I'm going to tell you the good things and the bad things about his game, and that will be the end of No Pucks Given here. The good things about his game. Watch how quick his feet are. I mean, he's a bigger goalie. He's what, 6'3", 6'4". And he really is that in person too, by the way. He's not 5'10". Some of these guys who are 5'10", 5'11". Yeah, I'm 6'2". Like, not even with your skates on. But no, Silovs is a bigger goalie. His feet are so quick. Watch the flipper saves he makes, like pinball flippers. Kick, 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 kick. Those are really impressive. Like, he's able to make some late saves and saves on deflections because of those flippers. He's also hyper competitive. That is going to serve him well. Looks like he's got a pretty good glove hand. However, it's also a hard glove. Like, he'll make a good glove save, but the puck just bounces off the mitt. And that's that is his biggest problem, his rebound control. I don't know if any of you had like those pitching machines when you were a kid. Actually, well, not a machine. My parents, it was like this just net, like the slanted net that's strung real tight. We planted it in the yard, and I would pitch baseballs at it. And you hit it, it comes right back at a pitchback machine, pitchback net. Silovs sometimes plays goal like that. Puck in, puck right back out as fast as it went in, to all manners, to everywhere on the rink. And that's a huge problem, because what that does is it scrambles the defense. The Penguins are already scrambling a little bit with their breakouts and that transition. It's still not clean and crisp. So when your goalie is just kicking pucks to the slot in the corner and block it, and you don't have that reliability, it becomes a little bit of a problem. Having said all of that, he's still stopping the second chance shots that he creates. Sort of reminds me of how Filip Larson was in Wilkes-Barre last year. That was my critique of Larson, where he would make 40 saves and 10 of them would be because the rebound was, to the opposing team. There's no question he should have gobbled up that shot from Provorov that Charlie Coyle just taparoo right into the net. And there were more. I'm going to table the Dan Muse system talk. I put some of that in the Saturday postgame. Go ahead and watch that. But somebody on the inside kind of tipped me off to the one big piece of the puzzle that I was missing. And then Ryan Shea confirmed it for me on Sunday. I was like, woohoo! I will write about that Monday, and we'll talk about that in the live chat on Wednesday, and so on and so forth. I presume we will do a live chat on Wednesday, because I will be arriving in Minneapolis at like 9 a.m. Was that 10 or 11 o'clock Eastern time? I don't know. But once I get set up, we'll do the live chat thing. All right. That is No Pucks Given. I appreciate all of you. Subscribers, to the website, hang in there. The fixes are coming. Some of you noticed on Saturday, for the briefest of moments, the new comment button worked, and then it went away. I don't know what they're doing. They're working on things. They're still porting over this giant network that literally is the size of like Russia. It was part of our problem. It was just massive. And they're porting this all over to the new home, and they're doing it in nice, neat little packages, and websites are faster and cleaner and prettier. But there's still some bugs. But they're going to do everything and then go back and fix the bugs. So hang in there with me. But I do appreciate y'all. If you see me on the airplane or out and about, say hello. In the meantime, kids, have fun.